Long before the pyramids grew silent and the desert winds turned the temples to ruins, there was a time when gods walked beside rulers, and kings claimed their thrones by divine right. It was in this sacred silence between myth and memory that she was born, Hatshepsut, daughter of the Nile, chosen of Amun, destined to become what no woman before her dared to be. The year was around 1507 BCE. In the city of Thebes, Egypt's beating heart, Queen Ahmose gave birth to a girl beneath the golden gaze of Ra. Outside, the priests read omens in the stars. Comets burned across the heavens like divine signatures. And the high priest of Karnak whispered, "A king has come, but not in the form we expect." Her father, Thutmose I, was a warrior king, a man who carved Egypt's borders with his blade. But to Hatshepsut, he was more than a conqueror. He was a symbol. She watched him in the courts, beneath the gilded ceilings, where Nubian gold caught the firelight and reflected off the faces of scribes and soldiers alike. She heard his voice echo through the colonnades, commanding, unyielding. And somewhere deep inside her, a thought took root: why not me? As a child, she did not play with dolls. She followed priests through incense-filled temples, learning the language of gods. She watched the embalming rites, the rituals of kingship. She learned diplomacy from her mother, and astronomy from temple scholars. She could read hieroglyphs by the age of 9 and quote the Book of the Dead before she lost her first tooth. Yet even then, Egypt had no place for a female pharaoh. Still, fate rarely asks permission. When Thutmose I died, the crown passed not to Hatshepsut but to her half-brother, Thutmose II, weak of constitution, unsure of rule. To stabilize power, he married Hatshepsut, his half-sister, as was tradition. She became Great Royal Wife, a title of honor, but not yet power. Thutmose II's reign was brief and brittle. He ruled in name, Hatshepsut ruled in shadow. When he died, their infant son Thutmose III was too young to rule. And in that vacuum, that silence between king and chaos, Hatshepsut stepped forward. Not as mother, not as queen, but as pharaoh. The court gasped. The priesthood hesitated. Egypt had never known such a thing. She was not regent. She declared herself king, pharaoh of Upper and Lower Egypt, crowned by Amun himself. And so began the most daring reign in all of Egypt's golden history. The day she was crowned, Thebes stood still. The palace courtyard overflowed with murmurs and incense. White-robed priests carried sacred standards of Horus and Ra, and the air trembled with the scent of burning myrrh. Hatshepsut stepped into the light not as consort or caretaker, but as pharaoh, sovereign of the two lands. Her brow bore the uraeus, the serpent of divine authority. Her chestplate gleamed with gold. Her voice, calm but commanding, echoed through the temple of Karnak. "I am the living Horus. I am Motker, justified by the gods. I rule not as woman, but as king." Some scoffed behind carved pillars. Others whispered of blasphemy. She had not defeated an enemy in battle. She bore no beard by nature. But Hatshepsut knew Egypt. Power did not lie only in war. It lay in continuity, in prosperity, in divine favor. And she would make the world believe. She moved quickly. To ease the unrest, she allowed young Thutmose III to remain as co-ruler in name. He was a boy still, and she posed no threat to him, yet. She kept him close, within the palace, training, watching. She would not harm him. But neither would she surrender the throne. She understood Egypt's soul better than any man on her court. She knew the gods were not abstract, they were architecture, ritual, permanence. So she turned her vision not to conquest, but to monuments. If blood would not buy loyalty, stone would. Hatshepsut commissioned the most ambitious architectural project in generations, a temple that would outshine kings, outlive dynasties, and pierce the silence of history. Deir el-Bahri, a mortuary temple nestled into the cliffs of Thebes, carved like the layers of a dream. Terraces rose in harmony with the mountainside, pillars reflected the order of the cosmos, and ramps stretched like sacred veins toward the inner sanctum of Amun. This was not just a tomb. It was her claim to eternity. To the common people, she was beloved. Crops were abundant, taxes were fair, and temples overflowed with offerings. She revived the trade routes, sending ships down the Red Sea to the mysterious land of Punt, from which Egypt had not heard in centuries. The expedition returned with incense trees, gold, exotic animals, and resins never before seen. Hatshepsut had not conquered with spears, but with commerce, diplomacy, and spectacle. She flooded the temples with her image. Hatshepsut kneeling before Amun. Hatshepsut suckling at the teat of Hathor. Hatshepsut, carved as a man, seated on the throne of eternity. But the images carried a quiet war. By showing herself in male form, broad-shouldered, bearded, robed in kilt and crown, she told Egypt, "This is what power looks like. This is what a pharaoh must be. Not a woman. Not a man. A divine sovereign." Behind the grandeur, however, storm clouds gathered. Thutmose III was no longer a child. He trained with generals. He walked the halls with eyes sharp as flint. The priests still honored her, but how long would they accept the rewriting of tradition? Power had made her eternal. But nothing in Egypt was eternal, except change. The sun still rose over Thebes each morning, gilding the cliffs and colonnades with divine fire, but the light no longer felt as warm. 18 years had passed since Hatshepsut took the double crown, and though her temples flourished and her name echoed in the sanctuaries of Amun, the silence within the palace walls had thickened like storm clouds over the desert. Thutmose III was no longer a boy. He had grown tall, lean, his shoulders hardened by years of training beside seasoned generals. His eyes, once wide with awe, now watched like a soldier's, steady, silent, and calculating. Hatshepsut had raised him under her roof, taught him court diplomacy, surrounded him with comfort. But power kept them apart. No crown can sit on two heads, not truly. He knew his place in name, co-ruler. But in truth, he was Pharaoh only in shadow. She had no intention of yielding. Why should she? Egypt thrived. Temples sang with offerings, roads pulsed with trade, the army was well fed, and the Nile flowed with obedience. She had brought peace, not just with stone and incense, but with order, the highest virtue of Maud. Yet rumors began to spread in whispers beneath the colonnades. She clings too long. She forgets she was only ever meant to guide. A woman should know when to return to the shadows. Still, she pressed on. She ordered more obelisks to rise, taller, brighter, gold-capped and covered in inscriptions of divine birth. She claimed in stone that Amun himself had fathered her, appearing to her mother Queen Ahmose in the form of Thutmose I. In doing so, she reshaped her identity, not merely as pharaoh, but as a goddess's child, a rightful heir by cosmic will. And for a time, even the priests dared not speak against her. But Thutmose watched. He waited. When Hatshepsut's trusted architect and rumored companion, Senenut, suddenly vanished from court, no one spoke of it aloud. His name was removed from some monuments. His tomb, left unfinished. It was as if the wind had swallowed him. Some say he died. Some say he fled. Others whisper that someone ensured he would not be remembered. And then, as if by unseen command, the Queen Pharaoh began to fade from public life. She still issued decrees. Her name still glistened in gold leaf. But she no longer appeared in court as often. Her voice grew quieter, her health uncertain. And one day, without fanfare or ceremony, Hatshepsut died. The woman who wore the beard of kingship, who claimed the throne not by blood alone but by force of will, was buried quietly in the Valley of the Kings, hidden beneath the same earth as the men whose legacy she had dared to challenge. But death did not silence her, it provoked her enemies. For in the years after her passing, Thutmose III struck. He did not denounce her outright. He did not curse her name. Instead, he erased her. Stone by stone, her statues were torn down. Her name, chiseled from cartouches. Her face, carved out of walls as though it had never existed. On temple records, her reign was omitted. For nearly 3,000 years, history would forget that Egypt was once ruled by a woman who built obelisks, sailed to punt, and outshone kings. But Egypt's desert does not forget easily. Sand covers. It does not consume. And centuries later, when archaeologists uncovered Deir el-Bahari and brushed dust from hieroglyphs long buried, they found her name again. Hatshepsut, the woman who became Pharaoh. The Valley of the Kings holds its secrets tight. For centuries, Hatshepsut's tomb lay silent beneath the limestone ridges, its passages cool and empty, its walls stripped of offerings, its identity veiled. The woman who had ruled with temples and trade, who had carved her face into the cliffs of Thebes, had vanished from history with a precision as cruel as it was deliberate. Her name was not cursed, it was unspoken. And in Egypt, that was a fate worse than death. Because to be forgotten is to die twice. Thutmose III had outlived her by 30 years. In that time, he became the military hero history had waited for, extending Egypt's reach through campaigns into Syria and Canaan. The scribes praised him as the greatest conqueror since the Old Kingdom. And for his legacy to shine, hers had to be dimmed. The erasures were methodical. Reliefs depicting her divine birth were chipped away. Cartouches bearing her titles were filled in with Thutmose's name. Statues of her, especially those depicting her as a male king, were smashed and buried in ritual dumps. Even her sarcophagus was moved, twice, its occupant unidentified, uncelebrated. For nearly 3 millennia, she remained buried not only in stone but in silence. Until 1903. In a side tomb known only as KB60, British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered 2 female mummies, labeled, unadorned. One lay in a coffin marked as a nurse to Hatshepsut. The other, resting nearby, had no coffin at all, just a nameless body, her left arm bent across her chest in the royal pose. No one knew who she was. For decades, the bones lay in storage, until the 21st century brought something Hatshepsut could never have imagined: science. In 2007, Egyptologist Drive. Zahi Hawass and a team of researchers launched a forensic investigation to identify Hatshepsut once and for all. They compared DNA from the unknown mummy with that of Hatshepsut's royal lineage. They examined dental evidence, matching a missing molar in the body with a tooth found in a canopic box inscribed with her name. And then, like a whisper from the tombs, the truth returned. It was her. The forgotten mummy in the unmarked tomb, buried beside a nurse, was the most powerful woman to ever rule ancient Egypt. Not a queen, not a widow, a pharaoh. And with that discovery, history shifted. Her temples were studied again. Her obelisks, still standing in Karnak, caught the sun anew. Egyptologists retranslated her inscriptions, no longer as mere propaganda, but as assertions of identity, defiance, and divinity. In life, she had ruled with peace, stone, and vision. In death, she had been silenced. But in eternity, she returned. Not as myth, not as footnote, but as what she always was: Pharaoh. Millennia after her death, Hatshepsut rises again, not through war or temple, but through memory. Across the museums of the modern world, her statues stand once more, their shattered fragments reassembled like pieces of a dream stitched back together. In glass cases, her name is spoken by curators, historians, and awestruck visitors who never imagined the might of a woman carved in the image of kings. She has become more than a figure in a tomb. She is a question, a challenge, a correction. What does power look like? What does legacy mean? And who decides who is remembered? For centuries, Hatshepsut's reign was treated as an oddity, an interruption in the line of male pharaohs. But with her rediscovery came a new understanding: she was not a gap in the story of Egypt. She was a pillar of it. Her reign was one of peace, prosperity, diplomacy, and artistry. Under her rule, Egypt did not merely survive, it flourished. She built not to impress but to endure. She ruled not with blood, but with brilliance. And still, her story echoes far beyond the Nile. In classrooms and leadership conferences, her name is invoked alongside Cleopatra, Elizabeth I, and Catherine the Great. But even among queens, Hatshepsut remains unique. She did not rule as a woman beside a man, or in the wake of a husband's death. She took the throne entirely, and held it. She reshaped it around her. She rewrote Egypt's oldest laws without ever raising a blade. She is now a symbol for scholars, feminists, and historians across the globe. In her silence, she was erased. In her rediscovery, she became immortal. In the cliffs of Deir el-Bahri, the sunlight still catches on the white stone of her mortuary temple. Tourists stand below, shielding their eyes. Guides speak her name aloud now, Hatshepsut, the daughter of Thutmose, the chosen of Amun, the pharaoh of the two lands. And if the wind blows just right, you might hear it echo against the stone. Greater than, I have done this for the gods. I have raised what was in ruins. I have honored the fathers, though I am a daughter. I have ruled in truth, and truth is eternal. Inscription from the temple of Hatshepsut. She was erased. And yet, she remains.